You begin far earlier than memory, before names, before edges, before the idea of distance has meaning. There is no up or down yet, no near or far. Everything that will ever exist is gathered together, not crowded, not pressed, simply unified. You are not looking at the universe from the outside. You are inside it, because there is no outside. Space has not learned how to be space yet. Time moves differently here. Not faster, not slower, just simpler. Moments do not stack, they unfold. The universe is young, and like all young things, it is learning what it can do. It does not rush. It does not know where it is going. It only knows how to begin. Then, almost imperceptibly, something changes. Not a bang, not a shock, but a release. The universe exhales. Space itself begins to stretch, not into anything, but into its own becoming. Imagine a held breath finally let go, gentle and relieving. That is what expansion feels like here. Not motion through space, but space learning how to open. You drift with it, carried not by force but by allowance. Distances are not traveled, they are created. Every point moves away from every other point, not because they are fleeing, but because the fabric between them is growing. It is quiet work. No friction, no sound. Expansion does not announce itself. It simply continues. In this early universe, gravity is already awake. It is curious, eager, trying to gather things together. Wherever there is matter, gravity leans in, softly at first, like a hand resting on a shoulder. Gravity does not pull with urgency yet. It is still discovering its own strength. It is learning patience. You can feel the conversation beginning. Space stretches outward. Gravity gathers inward. Neither is angry. Neither is wrong. They are simply different tendencies sharing the same newborn universe. Expansion says, there is room. Gravity says, come closer. And for a long time, neither one wins. The universe settles into a rhythm shaped by this balance. Expansion gives everything space to exist without colliding. Gravity gives structure, gathering particles into patterns, patterns into possibility. You feel this balance in your own body when you breathe in and out, when tension and rest take turns. The universe is doing something similar, learning how to hold itself together without closing in on itself. As time passes, energy cools. The universe loses its initial heat, the way a cup of tea slowly releases warmth into the air. This cooling allows matter to form more stable shapes. Particles linger. They interact. They remember each other. The universe is becoming legible, line by line. Through all of this, expansion never stops. It does not need permission. It does not wait for matter to organize. Space keeps stretching, evenly, everywhere. It does not care where galaxies will one day form. It expands beneath them, within them, between them. You might expect expansion to slow down as gravity grows stronger, as matter gathers weight and influence. For a long time, that seems reasonable. Gravity builds galaxies, pulls gas into stars, shapes the large, glowing architecture of the cosmos. Expansion continues, but modestly, politely, as if willing to yield. Yet even now, in these earliest moments, something subtle is present. Not a force you can point to. Not a particle you can isolate. More like a tendency. A background preference. Space does not merely exist, it seems comfortable expanding. As if emptiness itself has a quiet opinion. You feel it as a softness beneath everything. A refusal to fully collapse. Gravity pulls, but it never quite finishes the job. Space stretches, not aggressively, just persistently. This persistence does not demand attention, so for a long time, it goes unnoticed. The universe is not thinking, but it is behaving. And its behavior carries a hint. Expansion is not just a leftover from the beginning. It feels sustained, maintained, gently encouraged. Like a habit formed early and never broken. As billions of years will pass, this habit will become important. But for now, it is simply there, like a steady hum beneath a melody. You do not need to name it yet. You only need to notice that the universe never quite stops opening. You float forward as stars begin to form, as light first escapes atoms and travels freely. The universe becomes transparent, visible, awake. Expansion carries this light without distorting it, like a calm river carrying reflections. Everything feels balanced, comfortable, predictable. Gravity seems dominant now. It shapes the night sky. It gives the universe its dramatic features. Expansion feels like background behavior, easy to ignore. If you were a young civilization looking up, you might assume gravity is the main story. But expansion keeps going. Always evenly. Always everywhere. It does not fade with time. It does not tire. Space keeps stretching because stretching is what it does. You rest inside this early universe, feeling how natural it all seems. Expansion does not feel mysterious yet. It feels like breathing. Automatic. Unquestioned. The universe stretches because that is how it began, and beginnings have momentum. Still, that subtle presence remains. The quiet patience beneath motion. The sense that space itself is participating, not just hosting. You cannot see it, but you can feel its consequence. The universe is not only expanding, it is comfortable doing so. As you drift, you sense that this balance will not last forever. Gravity and expansion will not always share the stage so evenly. Something will shift. Measurements will become more precise. Assumptions will soften. For now, though, the universe is young and calm, stretching gently, learning how to be vast without falling apart. And somewhere ahead, gravity's familiar pull will meet a silent rival that has been present since the very first breath, waiting patiently to be noticed. You begin this chapter already held. Gravity is familiar to you, even if you have never named it. It is the reason your body rests against the earth, the reason your breath settles downward, the reason everything feels anchored instead of drifting away. In the universe, gravity is the same quiet companion. It gathers. It shapes. It gives weight to existence. As you drift among forming galaxies, you can feel gravity at work everywhere. Gas clouds draw together, slowly at first, then with growing confidence. Particles that once wandered freely now find themselves circling one another, bound in shared motion. Gravity does not rush. It persuades. Given enough time, it always succeeds. You watch stars ignite under gravity's patience. Pressure builds, heat rises, and light appears where darkness once rested. Galaxies take shape like slow whirlpools, elegant and enduring. Gravity loves structure. It turns chaos into pattern, loneliness into relationship. It is easy to believe this is the dominant force, the author of the universe's story. And yet, something feels incomplete. Between galaxies, far from the bright spirals and glowing clusters, space continues to behave in a curious way. It does not stay still. It does not tighten under gravity's influence as much as you might expect. Instead, it gently resists. Not by pushing back, but by continuing to open. This resistance has no texture, no direction you can point to. You cannot lean against it or fall into it. It is not a force in the usual sense. It does not gather or pull or twist. It simply refuses to let everything collapse inward forever. You might imagine two dancers sharing the same floor. Gravity steps inward, drawing partners close. The other presence does not step forward or back. It simply widens the floor beneath them. The distance between dancers grows, not because they choose to separate, but because the space between them stretches. Gravity does not notice at first. It continues its work, confident and persistent. For billions of years, gravity shapes the universe's visible beauty. Stars live and die. Galaxies collide and merge. Clusters form, vast and luminous. Expansion remains subtle, polite, easy to overlook. You float closer to a galaxy cluster and feel gravity intensify. It is stronger here, denser, more insistent. Space curves inward under the weight of matter. Light bends slightly as it passes by. Everything feels focused, gathered, intentional. Then you drift outward again, into the quieter regions. Here, gravity loosens its grip. Matter thins. The universe feels spacious, relaxed. And here, the silent rival is easier to sense. Space itself seems comfortable growing. It stretches evenly, without preference, without drama. This rival does not fight gravity directly. It does not cancel it or overpower it. It simply changes the stage on which gravity performs. No matter how strongly gravity pulls, the distance it must work across keeps increasing. The task never quite finishes. You begin to understand that these two influences are not enemies. They coexist, shaping the universe together. Gravity builds islands of matter. Expansion separates those islands with growing oceans of space. One creates intimacy. The other ensures solitude. Neither force explains the universe alone. Gravity without expansion would eventually gather everything into a single, dense ending. Expansion without gravity would leave matter scattered, never forming stars or life. Together, they create a universe that is structured yet open, connected yet vast. For a long time, gravity appears to be winning. In the early universe, matter is dense, and gravity's pull is strong. Expansion slows slightly under gravity's influence. The universe seems to be coasting toward a future where everything might eventually slow, settle, and rest. This expectation feels reasonable, even comforting. A universe that gradually quiets, that winds down like a clock reaching stillness. Many minds will later imagine this as the natural fate of all things. But the silent rival never leaves. It does not weaken as matter thins. It does not dilute or fade. Wherever space exists, it stretches. As the universe grows larger and emptier, this influence becomes more noticeable, not because it changes, but because gravity's reach becomes more limited. You sense the balance beginning to shift, though it will take billions of years to become obvious. Gravity remains powerful where matter is dense, but across the vast emptiness between galaxies, expansion quietly gains importance. The rival has no name yet. It does not announce itself. It leaves no fingerprints, only outcomes. Distances increase. Light travels longer paths. Galaxies drift apart, not because they are moving through space, but because space itself is growing beneath them. You might feel unsettled by a force you cannot feel. But this presence is calm, almost gentle. It does not tear things apart violently. It does not rush. It simply persists, moment after moment, stretching space the way time stretches during sleep. Gravity continues doing what it has always done. It pulls inward, creating places of warmth and light. The rival continues doing what it has always done as well. It allows room. It ensures that no gathering is ever final. You begin to sense that this quiet influence will one day become central to the universe's story. Not because it changes, but because the universe around it does. As matter spreads thinner, as gravity's long reach weakens, the silent rival's steady presence will become impossible to ignore. For now, though, you rest inside the balance. Gravity holds you close to stars and galaxies. Expansion opens the space between them. The universe feels stable, patient, unhurried. You drift, feeling both influences at once. One feels like a hand pulling you inward. The other feels like the room slowly growing larger while you stand still. Neither force speaks. Neither demands attention. They simply act. And somewhere ahead, careful observers will notice that the universe is not behaving as expected. That gravity is not slowing expansion as much as it should. That the silent rival has been there all along, waiting for someone to listen. You arrive gently in a universe that feels familiar. Galaxies are fully formed now, scattered across deep space like quiet lanterns. The night sky looks calm, orderly, well understood. Gravity has done its work for billions of years, and expansion, long assumed to be slowing, seems like an old story already told. Most scientists believe they know how this chapter ends. You rest inside this confidence. It feels warm, almost sleepy. The universe began with energy, expanded outward, and gravity has been gently applying the brakes ever since. Everything makes sense. There is comfort in that sense-making, in believing the cosmos follows a simple arc from beginning to rest. But science does not move forward by comfort. It moves forward by listening. In the late 20th century, a small group of astronomers begins to look very carefully at distant explosions of light. These are supernovae, the bright endings of certain stars, flaring briefly brighter than entire galaxies before fading away. They are rare, dramatic, and most importantly, predictable. Some supernovae behave like cosmic candles. Wherever they occur, they shine with nearly the same true brightness. If you know how bright something really is, and how bright it appears, You can calculate how far away it must be. Light becomes a measuring tape stretched across the universe. You drift alongside the astronomers as they collect this ancient light. It has been traveling for billions of years, crossing expanding space, carrying quiet information about distance and time. Each photon arrives softly, patient, unaware that it will disturb long-held beliefs. At first, the measurements seem ordinary. Galaxies are far away. The universe is large. Expansion is real. All of this fits neatly into expectation. But as the data grows, something begins to feel off. The supernovae appear dimmer than they should be. Not dramatically. Not alarmingly. Just enough to notice. Enough to pause. Enough to double-check the instruments, the calculations, the assumptions. Dimmer means farther away. Farther away means the universe has expanded more than expected during the light's journey. You sense the tension building, quiet but unmistakable. If the universe were slowing down, distant galaxies should be closer than predicted, not farther. Gravity should be pulling everything inward, easing expansion over time. Yet the light suggests the opposite. The universe appears to be stretching faster now than it used to. This realization does not arrive as a shout. It arrives as a whisper repeated many times. Different teams. Different telescopes. Different skies. The same result keeps returning, calm and consistent. Expansion is accelerating. You feel the shift in mood immediately. The universe, once thought to be gradually settling, is doing something unexpected. It is not easing into rest. It is picking up speed. Space itself is stretching more energetically now than it did in the past. Gravity, the familiar architect, seems to be losing influence on the largest scales. Something else is shaping the future. At first, disbelief is gentle. Surely there is an error. Dust obscuring the light. A misunderstanding of supernova behavior. A calibration issue. Science is cautious by nature, and this claim is enormous. An accelerating universe changes everything. But the data holds. Again and again, the light arrives slightly dimmer than expected. Again and again, calculations confirm the same unsettling conclusion. The universe is not just expanding. It is accelerating outward. You feel certainty begin to loosen, not shatter, but soften. Like sand slipping through relaxed fingers. Old models still work beautifully for stars and galaxies, but at the largest scales, something new is required. This is not a dramatic revolution. No alarms ring. No single moment declares victory. Instead, acceptance spreads slowly, like nightfall. As evidence accumulates, resistance fades. The universe is behaving differently than imagined. You sit with this realization and notice how calm it feels. The discovery does not bring fear. It brings curiosity. A quiet awe. Something fundamental has been overlooked, and now it is gently asking to be understood. Scientists give this unknown influence a name, not because it is understood, but because it must be spoken about. They call it dark energy. The name is not poetic, not precise. It simply marks the place where understanding has not yet reached. Dark does not mean evil. It does not even mean hidden. It means unknown. You sense how carefully this name is held. No one claims to know what dark energy is. Only what it does. It causes the expansion of the universe to speed up over time. It works everywhere, evenly, without clumping or fading. The discovery reshapes the cosmic mood. The future is no longer a gentle slowing towards stillness. It is an open-ended stretching, a universe growing ever larger, ever quieter. Galaxies will drift farther apart. Light will take longer journeys. Isolation will increase. And yet, this future does not feel tragic. It feels spacious. There is no sudden ending implied here. No collapse. Just distance. Silence. Time unfolding without urgency. You notice something else as well. Dark energy was not suddenly born. It has been there all along. Its influence was simply masked when matter was denser and gravity stronger. As the universe expanded and thinned, this quiet presence became easier to notice. The realization is humbling. For billions of years, the universe carried this secret openly, patiently, without hiding. Only now, with careful measurement and gentle listening, does humanity begin to hear it. You float between past and present, feeling the weight of this discovery. It reminds you that the universe does not owe clarity. It does not arrange itself to be easily understood. And yet, it leaves traces. Soft clues embedded in light. The cosmic story feels suddenly unfinished. The rules are incomplete. Equations gain new terms. Old ideas stretch, much like space itself, to accommodate something unexpected. You rest inside this uncertainty, and it feels surprisingly peaceful. Not knowing does not mean failing. It means standing at the edge of understanding, aware of how much remains. The universe has shifted its expression, not violently, but unmistakably. Expansion accelerates. Space insists on opening. Gravity continues its work locally, but globally, something else is guiding the flow. You sense that this discovery is only the beginning. Dark energy has announced its effect, but not its nature. Questions ripple outward. Is it a property of space? A constant? Something dynamic and evolving? For now, those answers can wait. As you drift onward, you carry this changed cosmic mood with you. The universe feels less predictable, but more alive. Less settled, but more spacious. And as you move into the vast emptiness between galaxies, you begin to wonder whether the quiet places themselves are responsible for this unexpected acceleration. You drift away from the glow of galaxies and into the wide intervals between them. Here, light thins out. Stars become distant memories. The universe feels spacious, almost still. This is where intuition tells you nothing happens. Empty space. A pause between meaningful things. You let yourself rest here, surrounded by what appears to be absence. No stars forming. No gas clouds collapsing. No gravity wells tugging strongly at your path. Just darkness, distance, and time. It feels peaceful, like floating in deep water far from shore. For a long time, this is how space was imagined. A passive stage where events occur, but which does nothing itself. Matter acts. Energy moves. Space simply holds them. an empty container waiting patiently to be filled. But the universe has been quietly correcting this idea. As you linger in the darkness, you begin to sense that emptiness is not as simple as it seems. Even here, far from matter, space does not sit idle. It stretches. It expands. It participates. You imagine vacuum as silence, but silence is never truly empty. It has texture. It has depth. It carries echoes. In the same way, empty space carries properties, subtle but persistent. It is not a void. It is a condition. Modern physics learns this slowly. The closer scientists look at emptiness, the more activity they find. Fields extend everywhere, even where particles are absent. Energy flickers briefly into existence, then fades again. Not enough to see directly, but enough to matter. You do not need equations to feel this. You only need to notice that expansion happens most clearly where there is the least stuff. Galaxies are not pushing each other apart. Space between them is growing. This growth does not originate from the galaxies. It comes from the space itself. You imagine a stretch of fabric laid flat and calm. Dots placed on a drift apart as the fabric stretches, not because the dots move, but because the fabric changes. Space behaves like this fabric, but in every direction, at every point, all at once. This realization changes how you understand emptiness. Space is not a backdrop. It is an active participant in the universe's evolution. It has behavior. It has influence. It does not need matter to express itself. In these vast regions between galaxies, gravity is weak. Matter is sparse. And yet, expansion continues steadily. This suggests that whatever is driving the acceleration of the universe is not tied to stars or galaxies. It is tied to space itself. You feel a gentle shift in perspective. Instead of asking what is pushing galaxies apart, you begin asking what space is doing on its own. The question becomes quieter, deeper. Physicists begin to describe dark energy not as a substance filling space, but as a property of space. Something intrinsic. Something that does not dilute as the universe grows larger. Something that remains constant per unit of space, no matter how much space there is. This idea feels strange at first. How can nothing have energy? How can emptiness influence motion? But then you remember how gravity works. It is not a force in the traditional sense. It is the curvature of space and time themselves. Space already shapes behavior without being material. Perhaps this is not so different. You float deeper into the vacuum, and it begins to feel less empty. Space feels like a medium with a quiet tendency. A preference. It wants to expand. Not urgently. Not violently. Just steadily, evenly, everywhere. This preference does not grow stronger over time. It does not weaken. It simply remains. As the universe expands and matter becomes more spread out, this constant influence becomes more noticeable, not because it changes, but because everything else thins. You imagine emptiness as a calm lake with a slow, steady current beneath the surface. At first, when the lake is crowded with boats, the current is hard to notice. But as the boats drift away, the water's motion becomes clear. The emptiest places, it turns out, are where the universe's deepest behavior is revealed. This challenges the way humans instinctively value fullness over absence. We look to stars for meaning, to galaxies for structure. But the universe seems to suggest that what lies between them matters just as much. Perhaps more. You rest in this realization. Emptiness is not a lack. It is a condition with character. Space is not waiting to be filled. It is already doing something important. Dark energy, whatever its true nature, appears to live everywhere space exists. It does not clump. It does not gather. It does not form structures. It remains smooth, uniform, unremarkable, and therefore powerful. You feel how calm this influence is. There is no drama in it. No sudden changes. No peaks or valleys. Just a quiet insistence that space should keep stretching. This makes acceleration feel less like an explosion and more like a gradual unfolding. The universe is not being pushed apart. It is relaxing into openness. As you drift, you notice how this perspective softens the mystery. Dark energy does not need to be imagined as something exotic or violent. It may simply be the universe expressing the nature of space itself. You do not yet know why space behaves this way. You only know that it does. And that its behavior becomes most obvious when you look where there seems to be nothing at all. The emptiness between galaxies is not wasted space. It is not waiting for purpose. It is active, influential, and quietly shaping the fate of everything. You float here a little longer, feeling the calm authority of nothingness. Expansion does not shout. It whispers through the vacuum, steady and patient. As you prepare to drift onward, you sense that understanding this quiet activity will require careful measurement, gentle mathematics, and deep patience. Numbers, distances, and light itself will have to tell the story. You rest with this insight. Expansion is not speeding up because something is pushing harder. It is speeding up because the stage itself is growing larger. The arithmetic becomes almost comforting now. Simple relationships. Gentle curves. A universe that obeys quiet rules even when those rules surprise you. You notice how deeply this way of knowing contrasts with human urgency. There is no rush here. No deadline. Just steady unfolding measured over billions of years. You breathe in time the way the universe breathes in space. Light continues to arrive. Telescopes continue to listen. Numbers continue to align. The arithmetic does not solve the mystery, but it defines its shape. It tells you where to look next. You sense that behind these numbers lies a deeper question. If dark energy behaves like a constant property of space, then space itself must be more than emptiness. It must have structure, character, perhaps even a hidden simplicity. As the arithmetic settles into your understanding, your thoughts begin drifting toward the nature of space itself. Not as a container, but as something active, expressive, quietly insistent. As the universe's numbers continue their calm repetition, you begin to feel that expansion is not something happening in space, but something space itself is doing, gently inviting you to look closer at its true nature. You arrive at a quieter way of knowing. Not through images or stories alone, but through numbers that move slowly, respectfully, never demanding urgency. This is the arithmetic of the universe, and it unfolds the way breathing does in sleep, steady, automatic, easy to miss unless you listen closely. Expansion is not measured by watching galaxies move like birds across the sky. It is measured by how light arrives, how stretched it becomes, how patiently it carries information across widening space. Light does not hurry. It accepts every change the universe offers along the way. You imagine a single photon leaving a distant galaxy. It begins its journey bright and energetic, vibrating with a certain rhythm. As it travels, space stretches beneath it. Not suddenly. Not unevenly. Just enough that, by the time the photon reaches you, its rhythm has slowed. Its color has shifted gently toward red. This stretching of light is called redshift, but you do not need the name. You only need the feeling. The universe has lengthened the light's journey without touching the light itself. The photon has not lost its identity. It has simply adapted to a larger space. You sit with this idea. Space does not shove galaxies outward. It does not throw light across distance. It grows, and everything within it responds naturally. Expansion is not an action. It is a condition. Scientists turn this behavior into numbers, but the numbers are not cold. They are careful. Each measurement holds patience inside it. How much has light stretched? How far has it traveled? How long has space been opening beneath it? These questions form relationships rather than answers. Distance relates to redshift. Redshift relates to time. Time relates to expansion. The universe reveals itself not in single values, but in patterns. You notice how gentle this process is. No single measurement explains everything. Meaning emerges only when many observations agree, when numbers repeat their story softly from different directions. The arithmetic grows clearer. Farther galaxies show greater redshift. Older light shows more stretching. Space has been expanding the whole time, and the farther back you look, the more carefully you must listen. For a long while, this arithmetic suggested a simple story. Expansion began fast, then gradually slowed under gravity's influence. Numbers seemed to support this. The universe felt orderly, predictable. But as measurements improved, as distances grew larger and light older, the arithmetic changed its tone. The slowing was not there. Instead, the numbers whispered something unexpected. Expansion was once slower than it is now. The universe's opening had not been easing. It had been accelerating. You feel the calm surprise of this realization again, but now through mathematics rather than light alone. Equations do not shout. They repeat. And repetition, in science, is trust. The arithmetic does not say why expansion accelerates. It only says that it does. It tells you how fast, how evenly, how consistently. The numbers show that space is stretching at an increasing rate, not in bursts, not in waves, but smoothly. This smoothness matters. If acceleration came from explosions or uneven forces, the universe would look lumpy, chaotic. But it looks calm, uniform, balanced. Expansion behaves like a background process, not an event. You imagine the universe as a long piece of music, played very slowly. Early notes are close together. Later notes are spaced farther apart. The melody does not change, but the spacing does. Time itself seems to open up. The arithmetic of expansion treats space almost like an elastic ledger, recording how much has been added over time. Each moment contributes a little more room. No moment is special. No era privileged. This is why dark energy feels so subtle. It does not announce itself with spikes or deviations. It simply keeps the ledger growing. You notice how this arithmetic refuses drama. There are no sharp corners in the data. No sudden jumps. Everything curves gently, like a road bending over a long horizon. This gentleness reassures you. Whatever is driving expansion is not tearing the universe apart. It is not unstable. It is deeply patient. As you follow the numbers forward, you see what they imply for the future. If acceleration continues, distances will grow faster and faster. Galaxies will slip beyond one another's view. Light will take longer journeys, some becoming too stretched to ever arrive. This future does not feel violent. It feels quiet. Like a library growing larger while voices remain soft. You feel how arithmetic allows you to glimpse this future without fear. Numbers do not dramatize. They simply extend their patterns. The universe keeps expanding because space keeps behaving the same way. Dark energy, whatever it is, does not increase or decrease. It remains steady per unit of space, which means that as space grows, its total influence grows too. You begin to sense a shift in how the universe wants to be understood. Not as a collection of objects moving through a passive emptiness, but as something more intimate and subtle. Space itself begins to feel less like a background and more like a presence. Not dramatic. Not alive in any familiar way. Just quietly active. For a long time, it felt natural to imagine space as a stage. Stars perform. Galaxies dance. Light travels across it like footsteps on a floor. Space simply holds everything up, invisible and indifferent. But the universe has been gently suggesting that this picture is incomplete. You rest inside this new perspective and let it settle. Space is not waiting for things to happen. It is already doing something. Everywhere space exists, it expands. Not because something pushes on it from the outside, there is no outside. Not because galaxies demand room, they are passengers, not drivers. Space stretches because stretching is part of its nature. This idea feels strange at first. You were used to thinking of energy as something carried by particles or fields, something you can localize and point to. But dark energy refuses to behave that way. It does not clump. It does not flow. It does not collect around stars or hide in galaxies. It remains evenly distributed, perfectly smooth, the same in every direction and every place. Wherever there is space, there is dark energy. Not added to space. Not floating within it. Bound to it. You imagine space as a fabric with a built-in tendency to loosen. Not tear. Not unravel. Just gently relax. The more fabric there is, the more relaxation can occur. Expansion emerges not as an action, but as a consequence. This is why dark energy becomes more important as the universe grows larger. As matter spreads thinner and gravity's reach weakens, the inherent behavior of space becomes more visible. Space does not become stronger. It simply becomes more abundant. You feel how quiet this explanation is. There is no mechanism to visualize. No engine to picture. No particle rushing around. Just a property, like mass or charge, but attached to space itself. Physicists describe this idea carefully. Dark energy may be a constant feature of space, the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Not evolving. Not responding. Just being. You notice how this fits with everything you have already felt. The smoothness of expansion. The lack of clumping. The calm acceleration. Nothing about dark energy feels restless or unstable. It feels patient. If space itself carries energy, then expansion is not something imposed on the universe. It is something the universe naturally does. Like time passing. Like entropy increasing. Like warmth spreading. You sit with this and feel how it softens the mystery. Dark energy does not need to be hunted or captured. It does not need to be discovered hiding somewhere. It has always been present, woven into the structure of reality. Even now, space between your thoughts is stretching. You imagine taking a ruler and measuring a single meter of empty space. That meter contains a tiny amount of dark energy. Not enough to notice. Not enough to matter locally. But multiply that meter by trillions upon trillions, and the influence becomes unmistakable. The universe is large enough for this subtle property to matter. This helps explain why dark energy remained hidden for so long. In the early universe, matter was dense. Gravity dominated. Space existed, but there was not much of it compared to the amount of matter. Dark energy's influence was present, but drowned out. As the universe expanded, space multiplied. Matter diluted. Gravity weakened across vast distances. The quiet voice of space itself became easier to hear. You feel how natural this progression is. No sudden appearance. No cosmic switch flipping on. Just a gradual change in balance. Space does not care about stars. It does not respond to galaxies. It behaves the same whether it is empty or full. This indifference is what gives it power. Dark energy does not chase structure. It ignores it. You imagine the universe as a conversation where gravity speaks loudly but locally, and space speaks softly but everywhere. Over time, the soft voice fills the room. This view also explains why dark energy does not tear galaxies apart. Within galaxies, gravity is strong enough to dominate. Stars remain bound. Systems remain intact. Expansion happens between galaxies, not within them. Space stretches where it is free to do so. You feel reassured by this. The universe is not unraveling. It is simply opening. Structures remain meaningful. Connections remain real. Expansion respects what gravity has built. As you rest inside this understanding, you notice how it reframes emptiness. Empty space is not inert. It is expressive. It carries a quiet instruction: expand. This instruction does not change with time. It does not weaken or strengthen. It does not adapt. It simply exists. And because it exists everywhere, its influence accumulates naturally as the universe grows. You feel how deeply this challenges human intuition. We look for causes that act. Dark energy simply is. Its effect emerges from scale, not force. There is something comforting in this simplicity. The universe does not need complexity everywhere. Sometimes a constant is enough. You drift through vast cosmic distances, feeling space open beneath you, around you, within you. Expansion feels less like motion and more like permission. The mystery is still there, of course. Why does space have this property? Why this value and not another? Why does emptiness carry energy at all? These questions remain unanswered. But the behavior is clear. Space stretches itself. You do not feel urgency to resolve the mystery. Understanding does not always require closure. Sometimes clarity is enough. As you float onward, you sense that this idea, dark energy as a property of space, will soon lead you backward in time, toward an equation written long ago, by someone who once tried to make space behave differently. You drift backward in time again, not to the birth of the universe, but to a quiet room filled with chalk dust and patient thought. Here, equations stretch across blackboards like careful poems. Each symbol carries weight. Each line tries to hold the universe steady long enough to understand it. Albert Einstein is here, not as a legend, but as a thinker wrestling gently with consequence. His equations of gravity have changed everything. Space and time are no longer rigid. They bend, curve, respond. The universe is dynamic now, alive with motion. But there is a problem. When Einstein applies his equations to the universe as a whole, they refuse to sit still. Gravity causes space to collapse inward. A universe filled with matter cannot remain static. It must either expand or contract. There is no middle ground. This unsettles him. At the time, the universe is widely believed to be eternal and unchanging on the largest scales. Stars may move, but space itself should be stable. A cosmic balance. A quiet permanence. So Einstein does something careful, almost tender. He adds a term to his equations. A small adjustment. A constant. Its purpose is simple, to counteract gravity and hold the universe in place. This term does not represent matter or motion. It represents a property of space itself. A gentle outward tendency that balances gravity's inward pull. With it, the universe can remain still. You sense how reasonable this feels. The equations behave. The universe rests. Balance is restored. This term comes to be known as the cosmological constant. Not because it is dramatic, but because it is constant. The same everywhere. The same always. Then, years later, something changes. Observations improve. Galaxies are found to be moving away from one another. The universe is expanding. Space is not static after all. It is opening. Einstein no longer needs the constant. In fact, it seems unnecessary, even artificial. If the universe expands naturally, why force it to stand still? He removes the term. The cosmological constant is set aside, quietly, almost apologetically. Einstein reportedly calls it his greatest mistake. An extra piece added to make the universe behave as expected. You feel the weight of that judgment. In science, elegance matters. Simplicity matters. Unnecessary additions are suspect. The constant fades from attention, and for decades it remains mostly forgotten. But the universe, patient as always, continues behaving the way it does. When the discovery of accelerating expansion arrives, the old equation stirs again. Scientists return to Einstein's work, not to criticize, but to listen. And there it is. The cosmological constant. Waiting. You feel the calm irony of this moment. The term once added to stop expansion now explains why expansion speeds up. The same mathematical structure, seen from a different era, tells a new story. Einstein did not know the universe was expanding when he added the constant. He added it to preserve stillness. But the mathematics did not care about his intention. The equations were simply describing a possibility. The cosmological constant represents energy intrinsic to space. Exactly what dark energy now appears to be. You sense how gently science corrects itself. Not by erasing the past, but by reinterpreting it. Mistakes soften into insights. What once seemed unnecessary becomes essential. The constant does not explain everything. It does not tell you why space has this energy, only that it can. It fits the data remarkably well. A simple term. A quiet explanation. And yet, questions remain. Why does the constant have this particular value? Why is it small enough to allow galaxies and life to form, but large enough to dominate the universe's future? The equations accept the number, but they do not explain it. You sit with this uncertainty. The cosmological constant works, but it feels almost too simple. Nature often is simple, but not always in ways that feel complete. Still, there is something deeply comforting about this return. An idea discarded finds new meaning. An old equation stretches to meet new reality. Science reveals itself not as a straight path, but as a spiral, revisiting familiar places with deeper understanding. You feel how human this process is. Expectations guide choices. Evidence reshapes them. Pride softens. Knowledge grows. The universe does not punish mistakes. It allows revision. Einstein's constant is no longer an embarrassment. It is a bridge. A connection between theory and observation, between early intuition and modern discovery. You imagine the equation resting quietly, unchanged on the page, while centuries of interpretation pass over it. Symbols remain. Meaning evolves. This reminds you that understanding is not fixed. It expands, just like space. As you drift forward again, the cosmological constant feels less like a mistake and more like a whisper heard too early. The universe was expanding all along. The constant was simply waiting for the right moment to be understood. You feel gratitude for this patience. For equations that hold possibilities long before they are needed. For ideas that survive being wrong long enough to become right. The mystery remains, of course. Dark energy may be the cosmological constant, or it may be something more complex. But the idea that space itself carries energy now feels grounded, anchored in both mathematics and observation. You rest with this thought. The universe allows second chances. So does understanding. And as you drift onward, you sense that knowing space can carry energy is only the beginning. The next step will require extraordinary care, measuring something that never reveals itself directly, only through its influence on light and distance. You arrive at a quieter edge of science now, where discovery no longer feels like finding something new, but like learning how to listen more carefully. Dark energy does not glow. It does not collide. It does not leave tracks behind. It never announces itself directly. If you want to know it is there, you must watch how everything else responds. You sit beside telescopes pointed into the night, instruments designed not to speak, but to receive. They wait patiently for light that has traveled longer than memory, light stretched thin by the slow breathing of space. Each photon arrives carrying a history written not in words, but in timing, color, and distance. Measuring dark energy begins with humility. You cannot grab it or isolate it. You cannot run experiments on it in a laboratory. You can only observe the universe itself and notice how its behavior changes over time. The cosmos becomes the experiment, and patience becomes the method. You feel the calm discipline required here. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is assumed. Scientists collect light from thousands of galaxies, then thousands more. They compare brightness, color, redshift. They look for consistency, not spectacle. The first measurements come from supernovae, those reliable cosmic candles. But they are not enough on their own. Dark energy is too subtle, too smooth. To understand it, you must listen to the universe in many ways at once. You turn your attention to the large-scale structure of the cosmos. Galaxies are not scattered randomly. They trace delicate filaments in vast voids, forming a web so large it can only be seen in pieces. The shape of this web carries memory. It remembers how matter moved long ago, how expansion and gravity competed in the past. You notice that dark energy leaves its imprint here too. By changing the rate of expansion, it alters how structures grow. Gravity tries to pull matter together, but accelerated expansion stretches space beneath it, slowing that growth. Galaxies still form, but their clustering changes subtly over time. These changes are small, almost tender. No sharp edges. No dramatic breaks. Just gentle differences that only reveal themselves when millions of galaxies are counted and compared. You begin to appreciate how extraordinary this kind of knowing is. Entire observatories are built not to see new objects, but to refine measurements by fractions of a percent. Precision becomes a form of devotion. Then there is the oldest light of all, the cosmic microwave background. A faint glow left over from when the universe first became transparent. It fills the sky evenly, like a quiet afterimage of the beginning. This light carries information about the universe's geometry, its contents, its overall balance. You sit with this ancient light and feel how calm it is. Nearly uniform. Almost perfect. Tiny variations ripple across it, encoding the seeds of future galaxies. Dark energy does not affect this light directly, but it affects how the universe evolves afterward. To understand the present, you must connect it gently to the past. Measurements begin to converge. Different methods. Different eras of the universe. The same conclusion returns again and again. Expansion is accelerating. The influence causing it is smooth, constant, and dominant. Dark energy never steps into view, but its shadow is everywhere. You feel the beauty of this indirect knowing. It is like understanding the wind by watching leaves move, or sensing time by noticing change. Dark energy does not need to be seen to be known. Its consistency is its signature. There is a softness to this process that mirrors the phenomenon itself. No violent collisions. No sudden discoveries. Just gradual clarity emerging from careful attention. You notice how uncertainty is treated here, not as a failure, but as a guide. Error bars are drawn openly. Confidence grows slowly. Each measurement is an invitation to look again. This is science at its most meditative. Observation replaces certainty. Listening replaces declaring. The universe is allowed to speak in its own language. You also sense the limits. Measurements can tell you how dark energy behaves, but not what it is. They describe effects, not causes. The numbers are precise, but the meaning remains open. Some scientists listen for change. Does dark energy evolve over time? Does its strength shift? So far, it appears stubbornly constant. Others look for small deviations, hoping for a clue that space's behavior is more complex than it seems. But the universe remains calm. It offers no drama. Dark energy continues to act the same way everywhere, everywhen. You feel how this steadiness is both comforting and frustrating. Comforting because it makes predictions reliable. Frustrating because it gives little to hold on to. Still, there is wonder here. To measure something that cannot be seen, to map the behavior of space itself, is a quiet triumph of curiosity. Humanity has learned to read the universe not by touching it, but by paying attention. You imagine all these measurements layered together, light curves, galaxy maps, background radiation forming a soft, multidimensional picture. Not sharp, not complete, but coherent. Dark energy emerges not as an object, but as a pattern. A consistent behavior across vast scales. A background truth revealed through patience. You feel how deeply this challenges instinct. Humans look for causes with shape and location. Dark energy asks you to accept influence without form. Presence without appearance. As the night deepens around you, telescopes continue their work. Data accumulates. Patterns sharpen. But the mystery remains intact, protected by its subtlety. You do not feel the need to resolve it tonight. Measurement itself becomes soothing. There is peace in knowing that some things can be approached without being captured. And as you rest inside this careful listening, you begin to sense that understanding dark energy may require not just adding information, but removing assumptions, learning what it is not, as much as what it does. You notice a shift in perspective now. After all the measurements, all the careful listening, a quiet realization settles in. Perhaps dark energy is not hiding somewhere in the universe. Perhaps it is the universe, or at least an inseparable part of how space exists. You let go of the idea that every influence must have edges. Dark energy resists that instinct. It does not clump. It does not thin out when space expands. It remains evenly spread, as if space carries it naturally, the way silence carries sound. This leads you to a deeper question: what is empty space, really? For centuries, emptiness was thought of as nothing at all. A passive backdrop where matter moved and light traveled. But modern physics has gently undone that simplicity. Space has structure. It can stretch. It can ripple. It can store energy. You imagine space not as a void, but as a fabric with its own quiet tension. When galaxies drift apart, it is not because something pushes them through space, but because space itself grows between them. Dark energy seems woven into that growth, not acting from within space, but as space. This idea feels unsettling at first. You are used to thinking of energy as something you can localize, fuel in a tank, light in a beam. But dark energy refuses localization. Every cubic centimeter of empty space contains it, and yet it cannot be isolated or extracted. You sit with this paradox. The emptier a region of the universe is, the more dominant dark energy becomes there. In the vast voids between galaxy clusters, where matter is sparse, dark energy quietly rules. Nothingness, it turns out, is not neutral. You reflect on how strange this is for the human mind. We evolved to notice objects, threats, and tools, not the behavior of emptiness. Dark energy asks you to reverse that habit, to pay attention to what remains when everything else is removed. Physicists give this idea a name: vacuum energy. Even the most perfect vacuum is not truly empty. Quantum fields flicker softly, borrowing existence for fractions of a second. Energy seeps into space not as motion, but as potential. Dark energy may be linked to this quiet activity. Or it may be something even simpler, a constant built into the universe itself, a baseline tension that tells space how to behave. You notice how gently this idea settles into cosmology. It does not demand new particles or dramatic forces. It suggests that the universe's acceleration comes from its geometry, not from an invisible substance pushing outward. Space expands because expansion is what space does. You feel the elegance of this. The universe does not need to be driven. It unfolds. As you imagine the future, this realization becomes more profound. As galaxies drift farther apart, matter grows rarer. Stars burn out. Structures thin. But dark energy remains unchanged, quietly shaping the fate of everything. The universe becomes simpler over time, less crowded, more uniform. In that simplicity, dark energy's influence becomes clearer, not stronger, but less contested. You sense a strange calm in this trajectory. No collapse. No sudden end. Just a gradual stretching, like a deep breath that never fully exhales. You also feel the humility this demands. The most powerful component of the universe may not be something added later, but something present from the beginning. A feature, not a bug. This reframes the cosmic story. Matter and light become the details, the decoration. Space itself becomes the main character. You pause on that thought. Space, the thing you never noticed, is shaping everything. There is beauty in how this idea resists final explanation. Is dark energy truly vacuum energy? Is it a constant of nature? Is it a sign that gravity behaves differently on the largest scales? The answers remain open, gently out of reach. But the questions themselves feel softer now. Less urgent. More contemplative. You realize that understanding dark energy may not mean pinning it down, but learning how to live with its presence in our theories, accepting that the universe can be driven by properties rather than objects. The shape of nothing begins to feel meaningful. As the night stretches on, you imagine empty space expanding quietly, not rushing, not forcing, just being what it is. And in that being, everything else slowly follows. You let yourself float forward, past the galaxies you once recognized. Familiar constellations shrink and fade, becoming distant echoes. The stars you have known all your life are moving away from you, carried on the gentle tide of space. Expansion, once invisible to the eye, now shows itself in a calm, deliberate rhythm. You sense the vastness growing, not violently, but inevitably. Time stretches along with space. What once seemed vast now appears intimate, and what seemed intimate becomes infinitely distant. Galaxies drift like old friends waiting from afar, their light dimming slowly, patiently, as though giving you time to remember. This future is quiet. No dramatic collisions. No sudden endings. Stars burn longer, planets cool gently, galaxies continue their stately dance, but more sparsely. As matter thins, dark energy's presence dominates. Its influence is not frightening. It is a background melody, steady and unchanging, providing the tempo for everything that follows. You feel the paradox of familiarity and strangeness coexisting. The universe remains recognizably cosmic, yet its scale has shifted beyond the limits of imagination. Distances grow in such a way that even the closest neighbors will one day drift beyond sight. And yet, there is comfort in the predictability of this quiet progression. As you float, you notice that nothing ends abruptly. Stars fade not in violent explosions, but in the gentle cooling of their fusion fires. Galaxies do not collapse, they disperse slowly, giving themselves time to settle. The universe's story is not about sudden drama but about the soft unfolding of time. You observe how the emptiest regions, once overlooked, now define the universe's pace. Dark energy, evenly spread across every inch of space, quietly continues its work. Its effect is cumulative. As space expands, so too does the total influence of dark energy. Acceleration persists, but always gently, without upheaval. You imagine the cosmic microwave background, once so prominent, now barely noticeable against the backdrop of an ever-expanding cosmos. It is as though the earliest whispers of creation are receding into memory, leaving only the rhythm of expansion to mark the universe's passage. In this long future, light takes immense journeys. Photons emitted from distant galaxies travel for trillions of years before reaching any observer. Some will never arrive. The universe stretches between objects like a calm, infinite ocean. Even the bravest explorers of this future will find that some parts of the cosmos are forever unreachable, not through resistance, but through the quiet insistence of space itself. You feel how this perspective softens the anxiety often associated with cosmic fate. The universe does not end with a dramatic collapse or a fiery finale. It stretches into silence, not empty, but spacious. A quiet order emerges from what seems like desolation. This is the long-term poetry of the cosmos, patient, deliberate, and unhurried. You notice how time itself seems to relax in these distant eons. Events become sparse. Collisions are rare. Star formation slows. Galaxies age gracefully. You drift along, a silent witness to a universe learning how to grow apart without breaking. This distant cosmos allows contemplation on the nature of persistence. Stars shine, galaxies orbit, and yet the vastness dominates. Individual objects retain their beauty and complexity, but it is the spaces in between, governed by dark energy, that now shape the large-scale story. Expansion is not a force of destruction, but a gentle guide of future structure. You sense that even in this stretched future, patterns remain. Dark energy does not vary or clump, its constancy is its signature. Matter follows familiar laws, but the choreography of gravity is subordinated to the slow, persistent stretch of space. Expansion is both inevitable and serene. You notice a deeper rhythm emerging, a cosmic lullaby. Light moves steadily, galaxies drift apart evenly, and space itself seems to exhale with infinite patience. This is the music of an accelerating universe, one that has no crescendo, only the soft continuity of growth. You drift past galaxy clusters, their structures intact but slowly becoming isolated. Over immense stretches of time, they are no longer visible to one another. Yet even in this isolation, there is no chaos. Gravity holds together the remaining structures, maintaining order locally, while space insists on freedom globally. You feel an almost personal intimacy with this distant future. Expansion is not an abstract concept. It is a gentle environment you inhabit, a rhythm you can sense in the spaces around and between cosmic structures. Dark energy, though invisible, is a companion, consistent, patient, and present everywhere. Time stretches further. You imagine the eventual fate of light itself. Photons from once brilliant galaxies may redshift into oblivion, their energy so diluted by expansion that they merge with the quiet hum of space. The universe will not darken suddenly. It will dim gradually, without urgency or alarm. Silence, rather than chaos, will dominate. And yet, within this long, quiet future, there is a strange richness. Each structure, each faint glimmer of light, carries the story of billions of years. Every star that burns, every galaxy that drifts, is a note in an eternal melody. Dark energy shapes the tempo but does not silence the song. The universe stretches without forcing, grows without rushing, and expands without losing coherence. You notice how human notions of time and significance pale here. Trillions of years feel intimate, yet you recognize the vastness surrounding them. You are gently reminded that the universe has its own scales, its own rhythms, and its own patient ways of telling its story. In this distant future, the universe becomes simpler in some ways, but more profound in others. The absence of density allows the true nature of space to emerge. Dark energy, once subtle and hidden, now defines the stage. Space itself, constant and insistent, is the canvas on which the remaining cosmos performs its quiet motions. You rest in this understanding. There is no rush. No need to force conclusions. Observation and reflection are sufficient. The universe will continue its gentle expansion, and the patterns of matter will continue to follow, subtle and unobtrusive, guided by the quiet insistence of space. As you drift alongside this long-term cosmic evolution, you sense that the future is not bleak, nor lonely. It is simply different. Spaced apart. Ordered by the natural, even hand of dark energy. Expansion is not a threat. It is a framework, a rhythm, a long exhalation that defines everything without demanding anything. You notice the comforting symmetry. Galaxies may drift apart, stars may fade, but the same processes continue everywhere. Predictability emerges from constancy, not from control. Dark energy, patient and pervasive, ensures that the universe evolves coherently, even as it becomes quieter and more spacious. You begin to understand why the universe stretches as it does. Expansion is not a problem to be solved. It is the universe's natural trajectory. Patience, consistency, and space itself shape the future. The cosmos is teaching you a different kind of time, one measured not in urgency or deadlines, but in gentle, unfolding rhythm. You feel a final tranquility in this vision. The universe is not ending violently or abruptly. It is becoming more spacious, more silent, more contemplative. Expansion is not loss. It is freedom. Space grows to accommodate its own presence, carrying all that exists gently within it. You allow yourself to drift in thought, floating among the stars and galaxies you have come to know, letting the vast expanse of space and time settle around you. The universe has revealed much, yet it keeps some of its deepest secrets just out of reach. Dark energy remains one of them. It whispers, but it does not answer fully. And that is enough. You notice how liberating this can feel. You do not need to have all the pieces neatly in place. The universe does not demand certainty. It allows you to observe, to wonder, to rest in questions. Some mysteries are meant to be companions, not puzzles to solve. You can let dark energy remain an enigma, a soft presence that influences everything without revealing itself entirely. Science itself is patient here. Observations are made slowly, carefully, over decades, even centuries. Telescopes sweep the skies. Light from distant galaxies carries messages across billions of years. Measurements are refined. Patterns are identified. Every new discovery gently nudges understanding forward, yet there is no rush. The universe does not hurry. Neither should you. You think about how knowledge grows. One observation leads to another. One theory suggests another. Mistakes are not failures, they are part of the process. Ideas discarded today may be rediscovered tomorrow with new context. The universe forgives revision, and so can you. There is room for curiosity without pressure, for inquiry without anxiety. Understanding is a journey, not a demand. Dark energy is subtle. It never shouts. It never reveals its essence in a single observation. You cannot hold it, manipulate it, or observe it directly. Its influence is only felt through the quiet stretching of space, the soft acceleration of galaxies. Yet even in its subtlety, there is power. It shapes the universe in profound ways, quietly and consistently, reminding you that significance does not always announce itself. You let yourself rest in that calm. The absence of answers does not feel empty. Instead, it feels spacious. Like the universe itself, you can expand into the unknown, carrying questions without needing immediate resolutions. Curiosity becomes gentle, a companion to your thoughts rather than a source of stress. You imagine the next steps for human understanding. Telescopes will continue to sweep the skies. Scientists will continue to refine models. Light will keep traveling, bringing ancient stories to patient observers. Each new piece of data adds a note to the unfolding symphony of knowledge, but the melody is never fully complete. It is meant to be ongoing, evolving, living in the spaces between certainty and mystery. You feel your body and mind mirrored in this process. Just as space stretches silently, your thoughts can stretch without strain. Questions can exist without answers. Understanding can be partial, tentative, and still meaningful. You do not need to solve everything to participate in the universe's rhythm. The mystery of dark energy also teaches humility. You recognize that even with all human ingenuity, some aspects of the cosmos may remain forever out of reach. There is beauty in that. Some truths are not possessions to be claimed, but experiences to be felt. You can know their influence without naming them fully. You can sense their presence without exhausting them. You drift through this thought, feeling a gentle connection to all the scientists who have pondered these questions before you. Their notebooks, their telescopes, their careful observations are not just records, they are conversations across time. You join them now, silently, participating in the ongoing process of listening, measuring, and reflecting. And yet, for all that is unknown, the universe feels coherent. Patterns emerge even without full explanation. Galaxies cluster in filaments. Expansion continues at a gentle acceleration. Light stretches and reddens predictably. The mystery does not indicate chaos. It suggests consistency, patience, and a quiet order that operates on scales far beyond human urgency. You realize how this reflection affects you personally. Letting go of the need for final answers does not mean giving up. It means allowing room for awe, for wonder, for the slow and meditative process of observation. It is a permission to rest in the mystery, to let questions linger without discomfort, to float alongside the universe in thoughtful curiosity. In this space, dark energy becomes a companion rather than a puzzle. You do not chase it. You do not demand it explain itself. You feel its influence in the soft acceleration of the cosmos, in the patient stretching of galaxies away from each other, in the subtle expansion that defines the large-scale rhythm of the universe. Its quiet presence is enough to guide reflection, enough to invite meditation. You notice how similar this is to sleep itself. You cannot control it. You cannot force understanding or resolution. You simply allow yourself to sink into the process, to drift into a state where questions exist without requiring immediate answers. Curiosity becomes gentle, like a soft current beneath the surface of thought. Patience becomes a practice. Even as you rest, the universe continues its work. Light continues traveling. Galaxies continue drifting. Observatories continue observing. Equations continue to be refined. Each step is incremental, calm, and deliberate. There is no need for urgency. The universe teaches that understanding is cumulative, not instantaneous, and that progress is measured in patience, not speed. You reflect on the cosmic perspective. Billions of years are small in the scale of space. Light travels across unimaginable distances. Patterns emerge over vast scales. Within this framework, your own thoughts, your own curiosity, your own reflection are part of a continuum. You are connected to the universe not through answers, but through participation in observation, reflection, and wonder. Dark energy remains unresolved. Its essence is unknown. Its nature may never be fully understood. But its influence is undeniable, its effect is measurable, and its presence is a quiet but constant companion in the cosmos. You learn to rest with this, to accept the unknown, to allow the universe's gentle rhythms to carry you forward. There is a profound calm in letting a mystery remain. Some things are not meant to be captured completely. Some truths are not meant to be fully understood, only appreciated through their effects. Dark energy, in its quiet persistence, embodies this principle. It is both elusive and central, subtle yet unavoidable. You let your thoughts expand like space itself. Questions float without pressure. Observations settle gently. Wonder persists without urgency. You do not need closure to feel connection. You do not need finality to appreciate influence. The universe, in all its patience, models the art of being quietly present, of acting without drama, of shaping reality without proclamation. And in this, you feel a deep sense of peace. The universe is vast, but you are not lost. Mystery is present, but it is not threatening. Observation is ongoing, but it is not urgent. You are part of the continuum of curiosity, one observer among many, one mind within the slow and careful unfolding of understanding. Dark energy remains awake, stretching space, guiding the large-scale evolution of the cosmos. You are allowed to rest, to dream, to reflect. Curiosity persists, but it does not need to demand resolution. Questions can remain, mysteries can linger, and still you can sleep, carried gently by the rhythm of the universe itself.